Hey everyone, Mr. Newman here, and today we're going to learn some tips about how to interpret and solve systems of equations with word problems. So, I have a step-by-step guide here. There are 5 steps we're going to do, and I'm going to fill out the steps, and then we're going to apply these to 2 problems. First, you always want to circle the question. What is the problem asking? This will help you do step 2. So you notice down here, how many horses and ducks does the farmer have? That's the question to this first problem. Part 2 is create and name your 2 variables. The variables are always involved or connected to the question. So that's why you always want to circle the question first to identify your variables. There are things you don't know that you want to know and or need to know, and they can help you. They're going to help us set up the equations that we'll solve to answer the question. Notice it asks for how many horses and ducks. So our 2 variables are going to involve horses and ducks. But this is where it gets very important that you be very specific, especially when it comes to something like cost or number of, because sometimes they give us values and those are not the variables. So you don't want to just say H equals horse or horses. What you want to do is you want to say H equals the number of horses. That lets you know that that letter represents how many horses there are. So be very specific when writing down what the variables mean. Step 3 is we're going to write our 2 equations, and there's always going to be 2 equations. Often they'll look in this form, and I'll go ahead and tell you that these first 2 are the ones we're going to deal with for now, where you notice there'll be a total somewhere in the paragraph, usually 2 totals, and the 2 numbers or the 2 variables will add up to that, or some kind of format of multiplying by the 2 variables. The last thing we have to do, once we have our 2 equations, and there will always be 2 equations because it's a system of equations, once you have your 2 equations, you need to solve them. You can graph to solve them, you can use substitution, or you can use elimination. Any of those will work, but there's often one or 2 of those that will work a little bit faster than the third. Last thing we need to do is we always, when we're answering a word problem, we always need to answer in a complete sentence. That means answering the actual question, not just writing down some numbers. All right, let's try to apply these to this first problem. A farmer's barn has all its stalls occupied with only 1 animal in each stall. He has a total of 20 stalls. The barn houses horses and ducks. He counted 76 legs in total. How many horses and ducks does the farmer have? First, let's circle the question. How many horses and ducks does the farmer have? Next, we're going to use our question to get our variables. Because it's asking for horses and ducks, H is the number of horses, and D is the number of ducks. Notice 2 things. First, I was very specific. Secondly, I didn't use X and Y, though you can. You can use whichever letters you want. I picked letters that would remind me of what they represent. That way, when I get to the end of the problem, I don't have to look back at this and say, oh, what did X mean again? What did Y mean? H is horses and D is ducks. One caution is if you want to graph this, and especially if you use a graphing calculator or if you want to graph it on a table, you'll have to convert the H and the D to X and Y. So you might want to include that if you prefer using graphing for these kinds of problems. Next thing we need to do is write our equation. So let's reread some of this. It said, a farmer's barn has all of its stalls occupied. There's 1 animal in each stall, and there's a total of 20 stalls. That means that the number of horses plus the number of ducks needs to be a total of 20, because all the stalls are occupied and there's 1 in each stall. Notice how it says a total of 20 stalls? That's how I know that one of the equations is going to be equal to 20. He also said there's 76 legs in total. So I know that that's going to be, something's going to be equal to 26. Now this is 76 legs. So we need to know how many legs does a horse and how many legs does a duck have. Well, a horse has 4 legs and a duck has 2 legs. And I went ahead and multiplied that because 4 times the number of horses would be the total number of legs from all the horses. 2 times the number of ducks is the total number from all the ducks. And the total number of legs altogether will be those 2 added together. So 4H plus 2D equals 76. Now we're on to solving the equations. There are lots of ways we could do this. We could use substitution or graphing, but I'm going to choose elimination because if I multiply that top by -2, then watch what happens. Let's rewrite our equation, the top equation, the red one, multiplied by -2, and we'll rewrite the bottom one. It's always good practice to rewrite them so they're side by side. Let's add those up together. Notice -2d and +2d add up to 0, so we get 2h equals 36. This is a very fast equation to solve now. Divide both those by 2 and you get h equals 18. We do need both variables though, so let's plug it back in. I'm going to choose to plug it into the first equation before I multiplied it because there are no coefficients on those variables, and that will be very fast to solve for. So we plug in 18 for h, and now we need to find d. Subtract 18 and d equals 2. So what does that mean? That means we have 18 horses and 2 ducks, and we need to say that in a complete sentence. So, answering the question, how many horses and ducks does the farmer have? The farmer has 18 horses and 2 ducks. I tried to make the sentence as short as possible, and I think I made it fairly short, but you do need to write a complete sentence that answers the question. Otherwise, you will not have answered the question. Let's try the next one. A farmer has a truck that can transport 48 animals to the state fair. He is taking pigs and ostriches to the fair. He counted a total of 132 legs. How many pigs and ostriches did he have in total? Well, we want to figure out how many pigs and ostriches there are. I'm going to circle the question. So that means our two variables will be the number of pigs and the number of ostriches. P I made for pigs, that makes sense, but instead of making O for ostriches, because that looks like a lot like 0, or even S, because that looks like 5, I'm going to choose T as the number of ostriches. It reminds me of ostrich somehow, and it also is a letter that doesn't look like another number. Now, for the equations, I don't like the wording on this problem entirely. I wish it said a farmer has a truck that is transporting 48 animals, but we kind of have to assume that the 48 animals is how many animals he has transported. So, total number of pigs plus the total number of ostriches gives us the total number, 48. And he counted 132 legs, so you could write down the 130 equals 132, even write down the word legs if that reminds you. And we need to write down the coefficients are going to be how many legs pigs and ostriches have. Pigs have 4 legs each, so 4 times the number of pigs, plus ostriches have 2 legs each, so 2 times the number of ostriches gives us 132. Let's solve it using elimination again. Multiply the top by -2. You get -2p minus 2t equals -96. Rewrite the bottom equation. Let's add them together. The t's get eliminated. 2p equals 36. And p equals 18 again. Hey, that's funny. Same number of horses as before, but this time it's pigs. But don't be fooled because we don't have the same number of ostriches as we had ducks. Notice when I write this into the equation, I'm going to choose that first equation again because there's no coefficients. That's going to be the fastest to solve. 18 plus t equals 48. Subtract 18 from both sides, and t is 30. So I'm not done yet. I need to write a complete sentence. How many pigs and ostriches did he have in total? The farmer is driving 18 pigs and 30 ostriches. Thank you very much for watching.